Let's get to the story of the day. I come from a vast extended family, according to most people. We are well known and loved in our community because we are strong, successful, caring, and gifted. I loved music and singing as the only female and youngest of 3 children, and I welcomed new people with open arms and no judgment. I was a sweet yet gullible young lady. As a child, I was traumatized by my birth mother's horrible decisions and her frequent appearances in my life. That is the only explanation I can make or relate to the events that occurred and forever ruined my life. My mother returned to my life as a young adult after being missing for many years due to drug addiction and mental health issues. She persuaded me to move in with her to help her care for her. I concurred. After a few years with her and no contact with my father, stepmother, and brothers, I needed to get away from my living circumstances and began staying at friends' homes. I was invited to come check out a studio in the basement of a friend to sing on an album they were working on. That's where I met Bobby, who held me in prison for 3 years by abusing me physically, mentally, and emotionally, and threatening to kill me. I had no communication with my family and found out immediately that he was in serious problems with the marshals and went on the run until he was apprehended. All I knew at the time was the people or close family he or we were engaged with on a regular basis, specifically a man named Mike. When he was apprehended, he received a 15-year sentence, and I was reunited with my family following treatment and counseling, thanks to Marshall's brave and dedicated team, for which I'll be eternally grateful. On April 21, 2010, I went to see a friend at her mother's house, and she told me that she was expecting a few pals. One of the visitors to her home was Bobby's best friend, Mike, whom I hadn't seen since before his arrest. He was with 2 males I had never met before, and they had expressly urged me to follow them to their place to hang out. I paused, but they persisted until I consented. My friend urged me not to attend since she had a horrible feeling about it, but I told her that everything would be fine. I knew Mike was the only one who had been there for me during Bobby's ordeal, so I trusted him to look after me. We embarked on our journey. The guys drove together in one car, while I followed on my own. We drove for a long time in the dark. I didn't know where I was. When I arrived, I was immediately offered a drink, and I observed the person who made it take a glass and mix the drink with his back to me, facing the top of the refrigerator's open freezer. I thought it was strange, but dismissed it. By the time I finished my drink, I remembered glancing out the window and seeing the sunrise. I recall an overwhelming feeling of fear overpowering me in an instant, followed by a sense of urgency. Mike was sitting on the sofa close to the front entrance, by the window, and I'm not sure where the other males were. I moved to sit on the couch next to Mike when a loud voice screamed, "Ashley, you need to leave now. Get out." I glanced at Mike and said, "I have to go now," to which he replied, "No, that's not a good idea." He inquired if I was okay and that it wasn't safe for me to go. He requested for a ride home after failing to persuade me to stay. I remember dumping him off and leaving his driveway as we drove away. The next memory is of sitting outside my car, pressed up against the rear tire. I remember only the pure serenity of calming and no other emotion. I remember looking up at the sky and thinking how warm and bright it was, yet there was no sun, only a lovely blue sky. I turned around and noticed that I was in a field of gold-colored wheat surrounded by gorgeous mountains. When I went to the right toward my front tire, there was a woman sitting next to me wearing a blue and white striped blouse and had gorgeous wavy brown hair, and my initial opinion was that she looked like she was from the 1980s. She was crying and staring at me, but I couldn't feel anything in response. I just recall being perplexed as to why she was sobbing, but there was no bodily emotion associated with my perplexity. I only had one feeling, and it was lovely and serene, but my mind understood that when I looked at her, I was confused. She began telling me that everything will be fine, and now it is. She was saying this to me, but her mouth was frozen. She told me it was all over and I was fine, repeating, "It's all over and you're fine now." My eyes shifted away from her and up into the sky, which had darkened into a dark gray, and I could hear ambulance sirens in the distance. I awoke in the hospital wearing a neck brace and being fed lasagna and green beans by the nurse. Then someone entered the room and placed fictitious money on the end of my bed, instructing me to tally the coins up to a dollar figure. I was frustrated because I couldn't. I later learned that the neighbor of the place I was staying at departed for work that morning and discovered my purse in their yard. They suspected something was wrong and searched my purse for my ID. With no other way to reach me, the couple who found my bag searched me up on social media and connected me to our family's business. During the startup, we were involved in the construction and worked there. When the couple called the restaurant and asked for me, they were told that I was no longer employed there. The pair stated that they discovered my purse and quickly alerted my family, and my brother called every hospital until he located me. I later discovered that on the morning of the accident, I contacted my birth mother and told her that I was driving down the road with Mike, that I had a shotgun out the window, that I was hunting ducks, and that I was returning home so she could cook them for me. I then hung up the phone, and my mother instantly began praying in what she refers to as tongues prayer. When my father arrived to pick me up from the hospital, I told him I was okay since this woman had been with me the entire time and had taken care of me. He appeared to have lost all color in his face after describing her to him. He pulled a few photos from my baby book to show me and immediately recognized the woman in one of the shots as the woman sitting outside my car with me. My father then told me her name was Trish. She was my nanny when I was born and resided with us at Park House, a faith-based home run by my parents. Trish died in a car accident when I was a year old. I also discovered that a woman was driving behind me on a stretch of highway the morning of the accident and saw my car cross the median into oncoming traffic, where it eventually collided with a tree and slid down a steep embankment. I was not discovered outside of my vehicle. I had to be taken out of it. Mike and the other two men who were supposed to put an end to my life drugged me. I was in a youth group program a few months after the accident that took us to the adjacent state of Wisconsin in the middle of nowhere to attend a Sunday worship. The building has a maximum capacity of 100 persons. I went to the common room for coffee after the service and was accosted by a tiny, very old lady who identified herself as, "I heard you know my daughter Trish. Trish used to make songs and music. Will you find them for me? Her poems?" That's all I recall from our talk. I am currently and forevermore married to my best friend, the love of my life, in our house, with a job I adore helping to care for others, and I have never had a closer relationship with my entire family. Thank you for spending time listening to my tale. I hope that even one word I said was helpful to someone.